So there are lots of ways to prevent this capacity of self-regulation from going awry. So that's the most important thing. Now when we feel like prevention didn't work out, and we do have a situation where there's, you know, really elevated levels of arousal that aren't regulating on their own quickly enough, then we want to move to intervention, of course. And all of our intervention needs to focus on implementing resources in our children's life, okay? So resources are, we know this now from the neuroscientific research, they actually stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, okay? So here we have, when we're in the zone, let me do red. When we're in the zone, as you know, this is our healthy nervous system, right? We get excited and upset or aroused or nervous, but we come back down, and even if we have more upsets, we are able to regulate those upsets and stay within the zone. So we know now that if we get too excited, out of the zone, totally in our animal brain, can't hear, focus, attend, pay attention to what's going on, that this is the time when we need to implement a resource right here, because we know now from neuroscientific research that resources stimulate the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system and bring the nervous system back into balance. So what is a resource, right? As you know, it's common sense. So you're just going to hear the science behind it. And it is anything that is helpful to your child. Anything that helps them to experience calm, pleasure, joy, balance, relief, if they need to feel a sense of relief. But a resource is anything positive like that, that has that kind of a positive impact on the nervous system. So resources, you could probably start thinking right now of what some of the resources are that your children have in their life. Think about some of these things. Let me pass around a resource inventory. Where did I put it? Here it is. And you could think about this. I want you to know, of course, as I said, sometimes when our children are struggling, it's not because of a trauma they've experienced. Sometimes it's because of our own unresolved trauma. So it becomes really important that we are checking our own stuff, our own ability to modulate our arousal levels. So how upset do we get? And I know a lot of times we think we're hiding it really well and that they're not really noticing, but they are. You know how sensitive your babies and your children are. You know that they know. I hate how much my son knows. It makes me very uncomfortable because he really senses everything. Now, and I use that word very specifically because he lives in his sensory brain, right? That neocortex, guys, like flip, that neocortex is undeveloped until we're 25 years of age. So understand it's okay. Whatever happened in college. Well, I don't know if we have any more time. But it does help us understand some decisions we made at earlier stages of our lives. But anyway, so understand that largely our children are sensory beings. So they're very perceptive. It's like, you know, when you can't see, your hearing is very keen, right? They don't have a powerful neocortex. They have a powerful reptilian brain. So they're sensing everything. So whatever it is you think you're, you know, fooling them about, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. So the thing is you need to get real with yourself about how you may be contributing to your child's nervous system functioning. Because the easier you get upset, the more they get upset. The longer you stay upset, the longer they are upset, right? That's how it works, unfortunately. So, and it might start with their upset. We might have been just perfectly fine. I mean, I have many, many occasions that I can remember where I was perfectly fine. And he just got upset for whatever reason. But then I got upset and I stayed upset. And that was a disaster. So it's about how do I stay grounded in my own nervous system and make sure it's regulating. So how do I need to resource myself? How is my life out of balance, right? So because, listen, okay, I want to go over the most important resources for your children. Think about the kinds of things that bring a sense of calm and peace and joy to your children. And just know, what I want you to know about that, guys, is that it makes a measurable difference to the brain and the nervous system that they're engaging in that. So play is very important, right? And of course, depending on the quality of it, we want it to be things that they enjoy. So let's think about what are some of their available resources? What are some of the things that they have in their life now? So they may even have imaginary resources. I just had a client, an 11-year-old boy, yesterday, and we imagined his safe place. I did a visualization so that he could access a safe place. And so we did this visualization where he sees a door, and when he opens the door, he sees his own very special place. It's all his, just for him, and it's his safe place. And so after the visualization, I asked him what he saw. And boy, he went on and on and on for a good, my gosh, he must have talked about that place for 10 minutes and all the details, all the animals that were there and the lake, and there was fruit that he could pick from the trees to eat, and the water in the lake was drinkable, so he could just stay there for as long as he wanted to, and there were albino platypuses there, and there were, I mean, I swear to God, the detail, all the different kinds of animals, and the vines hanging from the trees, it was like a jungle, and anyway, he went on and on about this. And we talked about the fact that when, you know, you're scared or you're feeling afraid or you're lonely or whatever, his mother died suddenly, went to work one day and never came home, had a cardiac arrest in her 30s when she was when he was 7 years old. So he is still dealing, has many, many issues around the loss of her. And so we're trying to regulate his nervous system again through these resources of a safe place, visualization, which is so powerful. You know, when we visualize things, our neurons fire in our brain as though we're actually having the experience. So when I talk about imaginary resources, it's not, you know, this isn't heebie-jeebie stuff. There really is a science to this. I don't know if you know the study, the basketball study, where there were 3 groups, and one group was told to do nothing. They were a control group. One group was told to practice their free throw shots, practice, 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 and the third group was told not to practice actually, but to visualize themselves practicing. And they did as well as the people who actually practiced day in and day out doing their free throws. So this is because the neurons fire throughout your brain, throughout your body, your muscles. It's as though you are actually having the experience. So when he visualized this place, he was in that place. He was there. His body, if I would have had him hooked up to a machine, his heart rate and his blood pressure and his cortisol levels, exactly, they all come down. We've stimulated the parasympathetic, and it's real and it's there. And I can see, because I'm trained to read physiology, I could see the physiological changes. He was jumpy in my office, right? He's got ants in his pants, right? This is anxiety. This is not something you medicate with Ritalin, right? He lost his mother, and he's not okay with that. And every time he doesn't see his father, he thinks he's never going to see his father again. So this isn't ADHD, right? I mean, this is, but when you have ants in your pants, this is a lot of times teachers will say, maybe you should think about that. And we understand because they've been told about ADHD. This is what teachers know about. So their mind goes there first a lot of times, which is why I do these talks, so that you can really be aware that anxiety or, you know, unresolved trauma or fears or overexcitation, not being in the zone, doesn't mean that that's what's going on. It can be that you're unregulated. Your nervous system isn't regulating on its own as it needs to. So imaginary resources are very powerful, right? What are your children's hopes and dreams and goals? And it doesn't matter how young they are. They have dreams. They have dreams and fantasies and hopes, and they think about these places. And it was clear to me from this 11-year-old, that wasn't the first time he thought about that place, you know? And he said, yeah, that he had thought about it before, but that he really saw it in even greater detail and knows now that he can go to that place anytime he needs to. Okay, What about guardian angels? You know, what is their belief system? I can't tell you how many children, you know, when I talk to them about this, that they have a guard, they have someone that's with them, and they actually aren't alone. And it's a wonderful thing to find out about your own child. If we don't talk about it, they don't necessarily think it's okay to talk about it, but they usually have someone that's with them. Okay.
What about like friends or cousins?
Oh yeah, that's so important. So that would fall into, let's say that would, yeah, available resources if they have friends and cousins and you know, godparents and grandparents and all of that. So whoever their supports are extremely important to them. So we need to think, what would be internal resource? Well, let's first go to external resources, okay? One of the most important, there's actually a book out now. You guys don't have to worry about this in gorgeous Pasadena. I can't believe it. I feel like I'm being held in the trees when I'm here. But where I'm from, you know, it's pretty urbanized. And there is a book out now called The Last Child in the Woods, Nature Deficit Disorder. And it's very real. It's very real for our children. So unless they're out there enjoying all of this stuff, their bodies, their nervous systems are really depleted. Nature is one of the most powerful ways to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. Sometimes our kids are in it, but they don't recognize it. They don't acknowledge it. So it's wonderful to orient your kids. You know, ever since Jules was a little baby, anytime he would, you know, hit his head or have a fall or an accident or anything like that, I would just scoop him up and we'd go outside. And I'd say, oh, look at the tree. And the second we got outside, he would stop crying. He would just right away, his eyes would orient to the trees and the sun and the leaves. And I'd say, oh, can you feel that breeze on your skin? And he was just a little baby. He couldn't really understand my words. But I was guiding him to really experience the world around him and be connected to it. It's very, very healing and stimulating of the parasympathetic. So now, on his own now, anytime he's upset, boom, he wants to be outside. And he just goes and sits under the tree in the backyard and hangs out with his little friends, his little imaginary, his toys and everything out there. Okay, animals are so important. Pets, have them. You know, in Long Beach, we're about 500,000 people. We have 300,000 pet owners in Long Beach. We have a lot of pets, probably because we're so urbanized, right? So it helps us to experience our parasympathetic. People, as you were saying, you know, places that your children love to go, right? We have to make sure that we are taking the time to go and do the kinds of things that are really feeding them, nourishing them. Activities. Listen, one of the most important resources that our children need to experience is competence. They need to have a sense that they're good at something, that they are valued in some way, that they have a contribution to make. You cannot start too early with children in helping them to understand that they have a contribution to make, that they're special, they're important, that they have a value. So what are they really good at? What are they really good at? And really acknowledging to them what their strengths are, what their talents are, their capacities. Are they courageous? Now this moves into internal resources, right? So we talked a little bit about guardian angels, but what's their faith? You know, do they have a faith? Is that something that you're instilling in them in some way, whether it's a belief in nature or God or, you know, the universe or whatever your principles are, that they have access to those so that they feel connected to something bigger than them. Do they have a sense of humor? Are they adaptable? You know, all of these internal things are what they carry with them everywhere they go. And you want to really make sure you're noticing what their internal resources are, that you're calling them to their attention so that they realize that they have this, that these are the kinds of things that will get them through difficult times. Okay, you know, sometimes in the short term, we want to help them get through something. You know, maybe there are long-term resources that we need to implement. Sometimes they do need a special relationship, right? Maybe they don't have. I know a lot of the children that I work with don't have necessarily This isn't going to apply to you guys, though. Let me move on. Let me move on from that. Let's say that your child is having a really difficult moment. Let's say he's really overexcited, and you really need him to listen to you, and you don't know how to do that, and you're trying to work on the breathing.